Welcome to Meeting of the Moms, a place to talk about all the things. I'm Amy Rasmussen. I'm a teacher by profession, a wife and mother by choice, an optimist by nature, and happy by design. I'm here with my good friend Lorna, who I call one of my greatest cheerleaders.
Hi, I'm Lorna Adams. I'm a wife, mom, and certified life coach. I strive to embrace and enjoy each new phase of life. Here at Moms, we believe the world is wide open to all of us and that we have unlimited potential. We're so glad you're here.
What's going well in your life right now?
I had sick kids and a husband. Yesterday they were sick, and so everyone was home, but I had made a big pot of chili. I'm not sick. I've been feeling great. I did make a big
I am glad.
chili and cornbread, and I have also been wanting to be mindful of a cute little neighbor down the street. She's an older lady, and I took a bowl of soup, of chili, and cornbread over to her house for dinner. I'm celebrating that I had enough and it was easy to share. I don't always like to plan and prepare to take food to people because sometimes that can feel stressful for me. And so I prefer the idea of like, oh look, we have this big amount of food. I'm gonna go share it. And so I did. I was mindful of that and I did. So that's my celebration.
Awesome. Well, good job. That's fantastic. So my celebration comes from this morning. I've been doing a book study of Gifts of Imperfection with some people, and we've been talking about self-compassion. And so every day we're sending self-compassion texts to each other about how we did it. So this morning, as we were getting ready to do this, I was running late and I realized I'd gone down a total rabbit hole for something else that did not need to happen today. So at some point, I texted you. So I went down a rabbit hole. So I am late. Here we go. And so the celebration is this. I just acknowledged this is reality. Yes, I went down a rabbit hole and I'm telling you who I'm meeting with. And yes, I am late. And then I moved on. And the self-compassion that steps in there is like, I don't have to beat myself up. Like, oh my gosh, why did I go through another rabbit hole? Why am I late again? I acknowledged it, and I'm like, yes, here I am.
Wait.
So
Right.
anyway, that just
notice.
felt so much better. Yes.
Good. Awesome.
Oh, thanks. Okay, so I am, I guess, really excited to tell you all about my experience with reviewing my goals for last year.
Nice. Okay.
It's been an interesting year for me. Lots of things where I'm like, this just is off for me. It's not necessarily where I'm at. And even in December, I'm like, I don't know. I'm not ready for the new year. And to come up with the goals, I'm not even excited about that. And that's unnatural for me. And then my other self from somewhere was like, Amy, you always use January to go over your goals, not December. I'm like, oh yeah, that is true. So then I just calmed down, enjoyed December. And so then I've been here and there going over my goals. I had wanted to just have a sit down and go over my goals, but that wasn't working. So I just did it in stages. So as I was going through this process, I was finding lots of things to celebrate. I was writing stuff out. I had different colored pens, and that was fun. And there was one thing where I really wanted to do something 4 times out of the year. And I did it 3 times, but I didn't do it 4. So it's kind of like not wanting to sit down and actually face facts and acknowledge I really absolutely did not do that 4 times. 3 out of 4 is pretty good, but this time I wanted it 4 out of 4. Well, when I sat down to review and I looked over things, I went back in my bullet journals, I had done it 4 out of 4 times. And I was like, are you kidding? This is awesome. So that like gave me momentum to keep going through the goals. Because I thought, well, what else am I going to uncover that I've done? So I uncovered a lot of things I didn't do, just like I knew I hadn't done them. But I also uncovered a lot of things I did do. In fact, I did 24 for 2024, but then I kind of flesh out what that means. And I had several pages of like the flesh out. Which some of you are like, are you kidding me? If I set one goal, that's good enough. But this is just how I roll.
I think you're going to have to explain a little bit more about the fleshing out. But
okay. So, I mean, some of it is like one of my aspirations for 2024 might be to connect with my children one-on-one. But then I'm like, well, what does that mean? How do I know if I accomplished it? So then I flesh it out by saying like, okay, this is what I want to do with my oldest. This is what I want to do with my middle. This is what I want to do with my youngest. So I have some actual steps that I can check off and be like, yes, I did that. For example, with my middle child, I had 6 adventures that I wanted to go on. Well, I'm looking at that, I'm like, I don't think we did 1 adventure. I'm like, wait, I took him to that play. We did 1 adventure.
Nice.
And then I'm like, wait a second. I took him to FSY, and we went and got Indian food because that's what he wanted to do. That counted as an adventure.
And it was a trip.
Oh, sorry. Right. We had to
FSY
drive.
was a
We had to
location.
drive like a 2-hour distance to get there. So, and it was just us
Nice.
for that time.
Yeah.
And I'm like, that counts. And then I helped him ref this year. And so anyway, so then I was like, I'm covering all these things that I had not initially labeled.
Yes.
Right?
Well, and even the roughing, that was you drove him to another location far away, so
Yep.
there was a trip involved. So yeah, very good.
Right.
Also, when
So
you break it apart,
I-
like, oh wait, I did.
Right, and so that was just interesting. And I started writing, and there were even some other ones. But as I started writing these down, I'm like, I did that And I set that intention, and I did things actually that had to do with that intention without it being constantly in my face.
Yeah.
Which was kind of unique, right? So I get to kind of all of this, and I'm just having this sense of like, how do I want to do this next year? And I want to have some overall intentions. Like, I don't know if I can settle on some singular intentions, because I'm like a big picture, lots of menu items kind of person.
She really is somebody that has lots of ideas. Like that is, she
Too
is
many,
just wired
really.
that way
Yes.
naturally.
And I don't do them all. And usually it's fine. Like, I have all the ideas, I use it as a menu, and then I celebrate what I did, and I don't worry about what I didn't do. This last year was not like that, and I'll get to that, but it was kind of unique. So I go through all of these things, and I'm just like, hey, this is really interesting, but one of the things I'm realizing is I put a lot of stuff out there to be working on at the same time. This isn't new information for me. My husband calls me an under-overachiever, because I'm like, I'm going to do all these things, and then I underachieve from that vision.
From the whole, all of the
Yes,
things.
all the
but
things.
you still are doing lots of things.
And I do 9 out of 10. No, I'm just teasing. That is not even true.
Sometimes that is true.
Okay, well, sometimes it is, but there's lots of times where that's not true. But, like, it's the whole shoot for the moon, but you reach the stars kind of concept, and still finding joy in that. So that has been my tendency. But I noticed as I was doing all this, I'm like, that wasn't where I was at this year. Something different was happening. This became a to-do list instead of a could-do list, or instead of a menu. And so then I wanted to kind of be identifying like why that was, which I came up with. But part of what was kind of interesting is I was like, this was a lot. And in this new year, I want to focus in on fewer things this time. And I want to relax into that. And I wrote this down. I want to have self-compassion. I want to focus on fun, celebration, balance, boundaries, perspective. I'm like, that sounds like intention and purpose that I could put at the front of my bullet journal. So I'm feeling all good and all these things. And I'm like, I'm done with my goal review. So I take that last paper and I turn it over. And I'm like, there's more stuff on here. I just started laughing at myself. And I was like, and I just self-compassionately, I was like, wow, Amy, you have a lot of good ideas. And you do a lot of good. And you absolutely do not hit the mark lots of times, as evidenced by all this review. But you also hit the mark a lot of times. That's what was so cool. And then because I had this whole cathartic experience, or whatever the word is, I got some insights into myself. So before I just keep going, thoughts about all of that.
Oh, I feel like there's a lot of really great points that
I know,
you
but
brought
I
up.
just kept going.
Well, I think sometimes I have been deterred by setting goals because I feel like I have to get it right rather than enjoy the process. And so I do feel like I've shifted that over the last couple of years. That has been so helpful. And so I love your phrase about shoot for the moon and get to the stars. I totally believe that. And really, just because you didn't get to the moon doesn't mean getting to the stars wasn't worth it. Because there's still growth that's coming as you're working toward the stars. So I really appreciate that idea. And I have tried to incorporate that. And so for any of you that are struggling with goals, I would totally say do it as kind of some options, things you want to work toward, and celebrate the progress, even if you don't reach the final destination.
Yes, absolutely.
Well, and I just think it's so important to be celebrating. And that was kind of even, all the steps. It's just so important to be celebrating.
Yep.
Our brain is quick to show us, like, yeah, we messed up with that. We dropped the ball on that. But we don't give enough positive reinforcement. And so we have to be the ones to do that. Because other people aren't always noticing, right? Sometimes people compliment you on something, but we can compliment ourselves, and it doesn't mean that we're becoming boastful or prideful. It just means that we're feeding ourselves some positive, just like the negative is in there already as well.
Right. Well, and I think that's one of the things I uncovered. I was like, okay, if I missed the boat on something this year, one that I want to correct and kind of shift, it was celebrating. Because I think in general, I celebrate quite a bit. And I'll be like, oh my word, I did that thing. Awesome. Or thank you, smart Amy, or whatever. And I was like, I just wasn't celebrating as much. So it just brought that to the forefront even as I was going through, which is why I wanted to be a focus for this year. To just look at the week, not as like, okay, what can I check off? What did I get done? But just what is there to celebrate? Yeah. And I think it makes a huge difference. And be enjoying the process rather than only trying to get to the end product. Yeah. Because in general, that's more where I've been, I would say, in my life. And so noticing that this year I was not there was also super helpful. And the other cool thing, well, say something about that. Do you have something about that?
I just like the idea of taking some time to plan. I feel like that can be so helpful for me too. I will just kind of write down ideas, and I just have one page in my bullet journal that are just kind of goal ideas. And so I'm writing out those ideas, and then I can go back when I'm ready and really finalize what I want my goals to be. But I like the idea of having some time to do it, and not like I'm sitting down today, it's January 1st, I have to have everything figured out right now. But I can be working toward it and then decide within January to do it, and then run with those after that.
And for me, I just don't want to spend December working on it. That's the big thing for me. I want to spend time doing other things, but then that January 1st date comes, and I really prefer the fall. I prefer the start of school, but there's also something about the new year. And so I'm like, well, I want to capture some of that.
Totally.
And so this is how I'm going to do it.
Yeah.
I'm just going to use January, and it'll be slow, and that'll be good. The other thing that I recognized is that part of what led to me not seeing it as a menu is I wanted to change a lot of stuff. I had kind of a big change in like November. And so I think I just had this great wide open desire for change and revamping. And I was like, and we are doing it all now, which I get isn't realistic, but even though I know that, I still somehow shifted that way. And I think we just do that. I think even though we have a certain way we want to do life, other things come in at times. And so that's helpful to know. It's helpful to know that I needed a big change, like I needed it. And I was like, then we're doing it. And then I got to a point where it was wearing myself out trying to do the whole big change. And yet, even with all of that, as I reviewed at the end of the year, I'm like, I did move that forward. I did change here and I did change there. So it's just a very unique thing. To be like, it's no wonder the year was exhausting to a certain extent, because I was doing almost a full reset, just mentally and emotionally, and like, where's my focus on all that stuff.
Well, and the November you're talking about is a year, just a
yes,
year
2023 November.
Yeah.
Yes.
So then that was the January. You're running with lots. Now I have mental energy to do all these things.
Yep.
And
then the other thing that came into that is that, I have all this mental energy to do all this stuff. Well, there were some things that had happened the previous 3 years that had all kind of built up that I needed to process. And so I've been looking for opportunities to process it. Some of it I processed, some of it I haven't. But I also realized this. And like, to a certain extent, I felt like there were opportunities missed during that other 3-year period. So I was running into things like resentment for that. And then I'm like, okay, well, we're correcting that now. But the resentment was still there. And then I was running into that feeling of having missed out. So doing this review, I realized, number one, I didn't miss out on as much as I thought I did those previous 3 years. Number two, yes, this was a new year for opportunities, so that was cool. And some of this I could be telling myself all along the way, but there are times in our lives where we need a time to pause and process and think about it. And it absolutely takes time. It's not like, well, if you just sat down at the beginning of last year and taken an hour or two, you could have just done all this. I couldn't have, because I wasn't there.
Totally. And I have felt that. Sometimes I need some time for things to marinate before I realize how I'm actually feeling. And then be able to process it. I think there's time that it needs to pass so that we can kind of feel it.
Yeah. And here's what was so cool about that. I think this whole thing that happened just this last week was cool, because I had just sat down at a broadcast, and as I was sitting in that broadcast, these different things were coming up. I'm like, okay, that's interesting, and I just write it in my bullet journal right in the middle of my notes. And what happened is that it was an appropriate trigger at an appropriate time to bring the stuff back up that had been marinating, so then I could address it to a certain extent. That also helped unlock some of the stuff as I did my goal review. So it's been a unique thing. I did not set it up to happen like this, but things just kind of came together so I could do the processing.
Yeah, very good. Well, and that's always nice when it can, and then to help propel you, right? That you can work through it and then propel you.
Yeah.
The one thing that you mentioned is about missing out in the last 3 years, and I feel like that is a common thing that comes up. Is I have a child sometimes that will be like, oh, I feel like I'm missing out. If you guys are hanging out without me, then I feel like I'm missing out. Anyway, I think that FOMO, fear of missing out, I think is a real thing, right?
Right.
And so, but even as you were saying that, I was thinking about how I think sometimes we feel like we're missing out on something, but really there's a lot of other things that we're doing that are so valuable too. And so in that process of you serving in this time-consuming calling for 3 years and feeling like there's some things you're missing out on, I think there are lots of other places where you were actually filling in and helping others not feel like they were missing out on different experiences and different things because of who you are and what you were offering. So not that that makes all of that go away, but I think there is, maybe you felt that FOMO, but I think you were also feeling for others.
I think too, with that in hindsight, looking at it, first of all, I didn't really just totally fall off the bandwagon of where I wanted my focus, right? And I intellectually I know that, but then I was also like, but why? I feel like I kind of fell off of it. So it was helpful to sit with both those sides of myself and look at it. And then I wanted to take the experience with both sides of myself and look at it and say, okay, how do I want to move forward with it? Because there are absolutely things that I'm like, I don't want to do this, and this in that way again. Because those are some places where maybe I missed out because of how my focus was and I wasn't able to take a break in myself, right?
Yeah.
And so not I should have done it, but instead like, that is so helpful to have seen and experienced because now I can be a little more clear in this next phase of where I do want my focus to be and how I want that focus to show up.
Yeah. It just is the idea of learning as we go, right?
Yep.
Like letting it be a learning opportunity. We're setting goals, maybe not reaching the moon like we'd hope, but reaching the stars, right? And then this is just another opportunity like, okay, I'm going to assess. Yeah, I don't necessarily like how we did that, but I know I learned some things, and now what can I do to help me move forward?
And the learning, you can't be like, I am going to set out to learn
Yes.
what I don't want to miss out on, right? Like,
You don't even know that's going to be a thing, right?
You don't. But I was talking to a friend recently who I exercise with. It's a different friend than you. And we were just talking about the morning time. And I was sick, and she noticed that she was enjoying part of her morning that she was home for because we weren't out exercising. So we've been talking about that. And one of the things I said to her is, let's explore, because I am a few years ahead of you, and absolutely this time will not be forever with your children. And so I'm not saying let's not take care of our social and physical stuff that gets happening when we get to go out and walk. But if that's something that you're missing out on with your kids, this might be the year to make that the priority and have us shift something. So we're still kind of playing with that and exploring it. But having just had this experience, it just is fresh in my mind. And it reminds me that that's been kind of my MO throughout motherhood, I think for both of us, that we wanted to be able to be present in what we were doing and still take care of ourselves and figure out the whole tension.
Right.
And you just learn. So anyway, so then even as I was thinking about the focus that I wanted to have with connection on with my spouse and with my kids, that was the section where I'm like, I kind of just didn't even pay attention to this section of my goals. And yet as I went through it, I was like, yes, I did. But it was so helpful to clarify. So for example, with my middle child, I want to do the adventure thing again. But this time, I thought, how fun would it be if we're just like, let's do an adventure. Whatever that adventure means. Let's plan it together and look forward to it and then do it. And then say, do we want to do another one? Rather than being like, let's try and get this many done in a year. And I think there's value sometimes at saying, let's try and do this many, 1 a quarter, 1 a month, 2 a year, whatever. But sometimes there's a lot of value in saying, let's do 1. And then if that's all we get, at least we got the 1. Because sometimes if we're like, no, let's do 6, then if you don't get to the 1 until June, then you're like, how are we going to get 6, right? So just do the 1 and then kind of make the new plan.
Decide. Yeah.
Anyway, and a time for each of the different things. But just such a fun time to self-discover in ways I wasn't anticipating. And it brought a whole bunch of my energy back. I found that I could celebrate. I found that I could have confidence again in having the menu as opposed to the to-do list. And that's super freeing. And it's okay that it took a year to do it. I think we want to hurry up and work through some of this stuff. Because for me, I'm like, I know I have to work through this, so let's just make that happen. We could do it in February, right? But sometimes you can't.
Right. Yeah.
I think a lot of times you can't.
Right.
You have to have life.
Requires the time that it takes.
Yeah.
And just being aware and open to what you need.
Yep. And continue moving forward even in that, knowing that there's this processing that needs to happen, and maybe trusting that in life some things will come together so you can do it. As it's kind of there, right? It's there in the back of your mind, like, this is something that I want to address, and maybe just have confidence that it will be addressed.
Well, and I think that's what's neat about our brains is that as we kind of give it an idea, even like doing an adventure, then you're going to find adventures to have, right? Where if you're like, yeah, I know I need this. How's this going to work out with processing or whatever? Then your brain will find it. And I think then we can see even kind of the hand of the Lord helping us through some of those things. Like, oh, all right, this is an opportunity to work through that too.
Yeah. Anyway, so I was just brimming with so much to say about that today because it's been such a unique experience, different than any other year I've done a review for. And this wasn't even my year review; that was just the goal review. But it also, so I guess I should finish with this. One of my goals this year was to do 4 quarterly reviews, and then I also had built into that to do a little bit of reviewing during the week and during the month. And I was absolutely imperfect. at all of it. I mean, I did get 4 quarterly reviews. But other than that, there's lots of just like not getting 100%. But at the end here, to be like, look what happened with my focus on taking time to review and reflect on my life. Like, these things happened. I found celebrations on a weekly basis. I found things to tweak on a regular basis. I can now go over and just look at a quick like summary of each quarter and just be like, that's interesting that these things came up over and over again. These things didn't. Here's what moved forward. And so it's actually very reaffirming that I took a year to be like, this is happening. I'm really going to do the reflections. I'm really going to do the review, even though they're imperfect. And it's still benefited me.
Yeah.
And that is cool because
Yeah.
I'm going to do it again this next year. So.
Well, and for those of you that are not as high achieving as Amy, more like me, I like my mode of doing things is a little bit different, but I do appreciate her input. Even just as we had a holiday weekend, like Labor Day weekend, I think it might have been. And I remember by the time I was going back to school, I'm like, we did nothing this weekend. Like, I feel like we didn't do anything. But then as I sat down and was really like writing down the things that we actually did. Oh, it was fall break. Sorry, it was fall break. Mm-hmm. But as I wrote down the things that we actually did, I realized we did way more than I realized. So I think sometimes that's part of it. The review is so helpful to actually remind ourselves what we are doing. And so not that you have to do a whole year review,
Right.
but it could be a weekend review or
Yep.
a week review, but looking for opportunities to review so that you can actually celebrate where you are and what you're doing. Because I bet you're doing way more than you realize you're doing.
Yep, absolutely. And I think that's what's led me to the desire to do those reviews and to do them somewhat regularly, because in a weekend you can remember. But then for me,
Kind of. Sometimes it's hard.
well, right, I know. But for me, like after the year, well, and let me clarify. When I say remember, sometimes you can go back in the bullet journal, or I use pictures a lot, right? Because I'm like, I don't remember what did we even do that day, and then I go back, I'm like, oh, that's what we did that day. But the thing that has convinced me last year to be like, I'm going to buckle down and do this thing, because before I'm like, I'm going to do quarterly reviews, and I got one a year if I was lucky. That's not quarterly, but the thing that I think was cool is that I just recognized that by doing the review, I could make visible to myself all the good things that were happening. Yeah. And so, yeah, just if you look for a time that works for you to do some sort of review, even if it's only one thing, what did I do today that I learned, where I learned something or I moved something forward, or just that I want to celebrate or that I'm grateful for, it changes perspective. So,
yeah, so good.
Yes, and we should say, this is not to say that this is the one right way to do it and that everyone needs to have 4 pages of notes on whatever they're doing. Each of us, we just roll differently. And so finding the way that you roll is really important, because people out there always want to sell the one right and true way to set goals and the one right and true way to have a successful life. And the bottom line is that they found something that works for them and they're excited about sharing it. And then each of us gets to go and pick and choose and be like, which elements work for me? And I'm going to test it out and tweak it and just create my own life and my own way. And then find the things that kind of resonate across the board. And things like celebrating and gratitude, and they come up in almost every system. Those are the things we can kind of hang on to.
Thanks for coming to Meeting of the Moms. We hope it made your load a little lighter. We'd love to hear what's on your mind. Send your celebrations, takeaways, and suggestions for future topics to momswithamyandlorna@gmail.com.
If you enjoyed the show, please like, share, and subscribe. If this isn't the right fit for you, we wish you well on your journey. Until next time, I'm Lorna Adams.
And I'm Amy Rasmussen. See you next week at Moms.